ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app. Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time for Tea Time Wagers with Brady Kannon at Valhalla PGA Championship on May 15th, 2024. We're here for the second major this year. Will Scottie get the second leg of the Big Four? Hasn't played since, right? I think he's had 3 weeks off. Congratulations. They had their child about 11 days ago. Was just talking backstage, and shout out to Noah Frank, our producer, and has done amazing work back here. Thank you so much, Noah. And of course, Brady, of all the big names, and who's going to come in and steal the show, or is this going to be Chalk City, as there is 156 golfers in this tournament? And sarcastically, if we spent just 30 seconds on every one of these golfers, if my math's correct, we'd be here for almost an hour and a half. So, of course, Brady doesn't have that much time. Neither is Noah. He's too young. He's got things to do tonight. So, first and foremost, shout out to our proud sponsor and partnership with WagerWire. If you haven't downloaded that app, head on over to Google Play, download it. It's free. And myself, Zach, Travis, the rest of the community will take over from there. So without further ado, the true star of this show, the one and only Mr. Brady Kannon.
Mr. Dawson, good to be with you again, my friend. And it is on the eve of a major championship. Always one of the greatest times of the year of the golf season. The PGA Championship returns to Valhalla. I'm starting to get the buzz, man. It's like Christmas Eve. Santa's about to come.
You know, I'm going to, before we dive into this week's second major, I'm going to go back to last week. And we had a basically going into Saturday, what kind of sort of looked like a potential two-horse field, which we got to on Sunday. Xander Schauffele, a 4-shot lead heading into Saturday. And as I said backstage, shout out to Mr. Benson and at Circa. They laid minus 140 for Xander if you wanted him on Saturday to win the tournament with a 4-shot lead. The ECSI VIPs, I sent out Rory plus 400. There was a handful of guys I thought that had a decent shot. Heading into Sunday, Xander 1-shot lead. What'd you see on Sunday, Brady?
Well, it was a remarkable performance by Rory McIlroy. And I sent a tweet out that said, Rory just beat the crap out of Xander. And he would have beaten the crap out of just about anybody on Sunday at the Wells Fargo. That was a performance that we get now and then out of any particular golfer. You know, Scottie Scheffler with a 64 on Sunday to win the Players' Championship. Rory with a 65 that really should have been a 63. You know, he made a meaningless double bogey on the last hole. You know, every once in a while you get an outlier performance like that. And it seems like it's been a long time since we've seen something like that out of Rory McIlroy. And it was beautiful to watch. I mean, he had an 8-hole stretch between 8 through 15, basically the beginning of the back 9, where he was 8 under par through 8 holes. It included 2 eagles. I mean, he just absolutely put his foot down and kicked Xander's tail. And, you know, the initial reaction is you're wowed by what Rory did. He wins the Wells Fargo for a 4th time. And you think, boy, Xander blew another 54-hole lead, which we saw him do earlier this year at the aforementioned Players' Championship, and that chasing 64 that Scottie shot to get him and win that title. You know, and a lot of people have since completely fallen off the Xander train if they weren't already off of it. And this guy is starting to earn a reputation as he can't close the door. and deservedly so. I get it. But people forget there have been a few times in his career when he has closed the door with a 54-hole lead as well. It's been more often that he hasn't, but I think it's about a 6-4 split or a 6-3 split. It's not like he's never been able to do it. And I think the other thing, as the days go by and you reflect upon this further, what has happened, Xander didn't really lose those tournaments. He was beaten. Rory and Scottie won those tournaments. It's kind of like a football game. If a team throws a bunch of interceptions and turns the ball over, maybe they lost the game and so-and-so didn't win it. But I think in this case, Xander didn't throw up all over himself and blow either of these events. He shot a 2-under par 70 at the Players Championship on Sunday, and that just wasn't good enough for a guy that beat him by a shot and shot a Sunday 64 at a very difficult golf course. And then he shot an even par, which was better than most of the field on Sunday at another extremely difficult golf course. And a guy came up with a 65 that should have been a 63. So that's kind of like Ernie Els playing in the same era as Tiger Woods. Boy, I can't catch a break here. I'm playing pretty well, but this guy's steamrolling me over here. So, I don't think we should all give up on Xander just yet. And should we run to the window on Rory? Well, the form looks pretty darn good. That's for sure. He's won here before. It's also the same circumstance where in 2014, the last major he's won to date, by the way, the PGA Championship here at Valhalla, he came into that victory off of 2 straight wins. And once again, here he comes in a decade later off of 2 consecutive victories. So we'll see if the stars align for Mr. McIlroy once again.
Shout out to good friend, colleague, and was on our show on Monday. I will be reciprocating on Friday. Andrew McGinnis at Wager Talk at McGinnis Picks. Thank you, Andrew, for showing up and watching. The top three dogs all coming in form, all coming in off of wins. Mr. Scottie Scheffler, who just had a child. His wife had a child, 11, 12 days ago. Brooks Koepka off the Live Tour, and in comes Rory. Those are the big three that we're hearing about. Odds right now, Scheffler maybe plus 450. Rory plus 750, and 2 weeks ago could have got Brooks around that plus 20. Now he's down to about 12, even some 11 to 1s. Thoughts on the big three there coming into tee off time tomorrow?
Well, I took Brooks Koepka at 14 to 1, and I'm even not thrilled at that price. I'd love to have 18 or 20, which you're right, was available before that win in Singapore on the Live circuit. Rory, I almost clicked the button a couple weeks ago when he was at 15, and obviously now that price has been cut in half after his win. Scottie, I'm going to stay away from because I don't know how he's going to perform on the other side of becoming a father for the first time in his life. The 3 weeks off is not really that big a deal. It's not uncommon that we see, especially the big stars, take an extended break, which is maybe 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks sometimes. But, oftentimes 2 weeks, not uncommon for 3 weeks. So the break is not really, what should have you wondering about Scottie Scheffler, but it's more so why he took the break. To become a father. And we know he's an incredible family man. And this is obviously a massive event in his life, a life-changing event. And I believe the birth was actually last Friday or Saturday, Jeff. So it's really only, 5 or 6 days removed. So this is a real quick turnaround. You go from bang out of the emergency room or the delivery room, onto the practice tee at Valhalla. So that's a quick turnaround. And again, I don't know. I mean, obviously he probably wasn't playing as much, wasn't practicing as much. Is there a rust factor there? I don't think we really know any of that. And we're going to find out here pretty quickly. What I do know, Jeff, and I equate this to NFL handicapping. When you see a football team go on a 4 or 5 game winning streak, and then they have to take their bye week. And oftentimes that pause in the momentum causes that team to come out on the other side and put up a clunker of a performance. And it's not uncommon to see that. what has happened to Scottie is he was on a historic run. He's like that team that has won 4 or 5 games in a row, even bigger in the world of golf, the type of run he was on. And he's had to pause. He has had to interrupt what he was doing. So will he come out more, no worse for the wear on the other side, or will he be off from what he was prior? And even if he's off just a tick from where he was prior, he still might be able to win. So there are a lot of questions concerning Scheffler. The one thing I can say for sure is the run has been interrupted. We don't know if that's going to be a positive or a negative on the other side. Brooks, I told you this backstage. I did not want to be one of the guys running to the window when he won on the Live Tour in Singapore. I said, oh gosh, here we go. Everybody's going to be on Brooks. And I started my handicap last week and I said, you know what? I think I got to be on Brooks too. I mean, I'm thankful. I probably wouldn't have been on him had he not won in Singapore, but coming off of a win is a big deal. 16 out of the last 18 PGA champions have finished top 25 or better in their last event prior to the championship. And obviously Brooks checks that box. Zoysia fairways are what we have here at Valhalla. Zoysia fairways are also what you had at Sentosa in Singapore. Koepka has been outspoken about how disappointed he was with his performance at the Masters, and he has told himself, I got to snap out of this. What the heck am I doing? And I think the Live circuit has, lends itself to being more casual and relaxed and maybe not as focused. And he has tried to pull himself out of that and get back to what we're used to seeing out of Brooks Koepka. And I think that showed up in Singapore, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if it showed up here again. This guy, almost half of his career wins have come at major championships, 3 of which have been at the PGA Championship. I talk about Zoysia, the very same combination at Bellerive in St. Louis when he won in 2018, Zoysia fairways and bent grass greens. That's exactly what we have here at Valhalla. So there's just a number of reasons to, where you just are forced to almost not ignore Brooks and putting him on your card, despite the overwhelming support he's getting. The 3 guys we're talking about, Rory, Scottie, and Brooks, are number 1, 2, and 3. Scottie, I can't remember. There's a little bit different. Scottie's number 1 in each category, and Rory and Brooks kind of trade places between 2 and 3 at BetMGM in ticket count, handle, and liability. They're arguably the 3 best players coming into this week, so it's understandable that there's a large majority on these 3 guys. I did not play Rory or Scottie. I did play Brooks. And like I said, despite not wanting to side with the masses, I couldn't leave him off. And then Rory, there's the additional soap opera element that has come out that he's filed for divorce. And, we talk about him coming in off of 2 victories, both in 2014 and also here in 2024. Funny to add another layer to that trend. In 2014, he also broke up with his girlfriend right before he won, and now he's breaking up with his wife. So maybe he's absolutely destined to win, but that's kind of a bad joke in my opinion. It's not fun to see that type of thing happen to people. And the reality of it is, I believe that's maybe got Rory. There can't be no distraction. I don't think he's completely void of distraction because of that. It's kind of the same question with Scottie. Will the time off propel Scottie? Will the fact that he's a new father propel him and springboard him to greater things? Will this, free Rory up, without the concern on his mind? Or will it be, something that's on his mind and is tough to escape? I don't know the answer, but certainly at plus 750, I'm not going to try and come up with the answer and bet him. We go through this a lot, Jeff, probably especially in major championships where you've got, maybe the top 12, 15 guys on the board, and you can make a case for every single one of them. The fact is you can't pick every single one of them if you want to be a responsible bettor. So out of the chalk, I went with Brooks, and I didn't veer too far. I basically played 2 chalkier guys, 2 guys in the 30s, 3 or 4 guys in the 30s and 40s, and a couple of longer bombs. And that's typically how I build my card every week. And At the very least, we hope they all finish top 20. And if they all are in the top 20, that means probably a couple of them will have a chance to cash an outright ticket as well.
And we have talked about it at length, saving a few bullets, seeing how the first round shakes out, even seeing how the second round, who makes the cut, who doesn't, assessing the board. The live betting has been fabulous for you. It's been great for us as well. And so, again, when you got the 4.5s to ones, the 7.5s, and eight, there's no 8, 9, 10s. You get the 11s and 12s. And so a bad round might get an extra 5, 6, 7 to 1 on one of those guys. A little more meat on the bone, a little more palatable, with 2 or 3 rounds to go.
No doubt about it. I've had tremendous success betting Scottie Scheffler in game this year. He's rewarded me 3 times at Bay Hill, at the Masters, and the RBC Heritage. And I've even laid big prices like minus 500, after he got out to a lead by a shot or 2 after 3 or 4 holes. And I jumped on it before eventually it got to minus 1,500. I bet Scottie 1 time pre-tournament. He almost got there in Phoenix for a 3rd straight year. At one point on about the 16th, 15th hole, he was minus 200 to win it, but eventually Nick Taylor got him. So yeah, I'm probably going to treat Scottie the exact same way. And I don't know if I would treat Brooks and Rory the exact same way, maybe. But Scottie, for me, is Floyd Mayweather. If this guy's, can taste the victory, there's a real good chance he's going to get it. And Jeff, from experience at the Masters, I want to say it was minus 110 or plus 110 or something like that going into the final day. And I jumped on him, and that turned out to be a winner, obviously. But the point is, when you've got a major championship field, and if we're here headed into Sunday and Scottie's maybe 1 shot back or 1 shot in front, you're probably going to get a pretty good price, because those that are chasing him are probably some pretty darn big name guys. So Scottie's not going to be minus 600 at that point, unless he has an 8-shot lead or something like that. But if it's close, which it should be, you can probably get a pretty darn good in-game price on Scheffler for sure.
DT plus the points has a great question. This guy showed flashes at the Masters on the leaderboard for 2, almost 3 full days. And my question is, he wants to know thoughts on DeChambeau. You talked about it's a bomber's course. We know he can bomb with the best of them. What is your thoughts on Mr. DeChambeau?
Well, it is not often that DeChambeau has made my card in a major championship, but he did this year. And if you go back again to Valhalla in 2014 and you look at that leaderboard, you can go about 15 players deep. Every one of them was in the top. I shouldn't say every one of them. The majority of them, an overwhelming majority of them, were in the top 25 in the field for driving distance. And also remarkably well, high ranking, like top 12, top 15 in strokes gained putting. So drive the heck out of it and hole some putts. Brooks Koepka fits that mold, and so does Bryson DeChambeau, one of the longest hitters in the world. I think he ranks 2nd in driving distance in the field this week. He's also a very good putter, and I believe bent grass is his best surface for putting on. We've seen him win at Jack Nicklaus Designs, which Valhalla is. He won the Memorial at Muirfield Village. He's finished 4th twice in the PGA Championship. He's won a U.S. Open on another beast of a golf course at Winged Foot. And then, like this gentleman references, he just comes off of his best ever finish at the Masters, finishing 6th. Got out to a hot start, came crashing down a little bit over the weekend. That's okay. Still managed a top 6 finish, which is very, very impressive on a major that probably has been the worst one that he's been able to perform well in so far in his career. The other thing we talked about, 16 of the last 18 PGA champions are coming off of a top 25 finish in their last start. If you go back to 2012, every PGA championship winner made the cut that year at the Masters. Now you throw out 2018 because Brooks did not tee it up in the Masters that year, and you throw out 2020 because it was a COVID year. The Masters did not precede the PGA. It was played in November. Every other Masters in between there, the player that eventually went on to win the PGA made the cut. When the PGA moved to May in 2019, the average finishing position of the eventual PGA winner was 8th at the Masters. And you look at the top 10 on the leaderboard at the Masters this year, Scheffler, Schauffele, Oberg, Homa, Morikawa, Bryson DeChambeau. So, those names are likely to show up again. And to answer the question, yeah, I have a bet on DeChambeau to win it outright. I have a bet on him to finish top 20. With the skill set that he owns, this golf course ought to suit him really well. And let's throw on top of that. Now, he doesn't qualify for a top 25 finish in his last start. He was a little bit pedestrian in the last 2 live events in Australia and Singapore. But prior to that, finished top 10 4 out of 5 times on the live circuit. So I'm not too worried. I don't think he's come off the boil. And this is another guy. We talked about Brooks kind of refocusing and saying, hey, what am I doing here? Being casual about this stuff. I'm a big game hunter and I'm going to prove it to everybody once again. I think DeChambeau's another one of those guys that really gets geeked up for the major championships. I think he's all about this as well. And I don't see him having a lackadaisical attitude one bit.
I know we're 21 minutes in, and I definitely want to get to your picks and your head-to-heads. We've talked about the big 3. We've talked about some live golfers. I don't think it would be fair for me not to ask you for a couple seconds on a name that we haven't mentioned. Where the hell is he? What the hell's going on? And that's Mr. Jon Rahm. I mean, here's a guy that again, he was an autoplay top 5, top 10, number 1 player in the world, goes over to live, gets the bag, and where is he? I mean, this is one of those snakes in the grass. No one's talking about him, and there he is, box to wire.
Yeah, we've seen that type of thing in sports betting happen a lot. I thought about Jon Rahm, of course, this week. You have to. I believe he's certainly a top 5 player in the world, in my opinion, and some people might say better than that. Like we said before, you can't pick them all, but you have to have your reasons why you're not picking a certain guy. And I've seen a couple of people this week, extremely sharp golf bettors, that are on Jon Rahm, and basically for the same reasons you're saying, because nobody's talking about him. Everybody's talking about Brooks and Rory and Scottie. But Rahm, for me, first of all, it was, I want to say that I didn't expect it. But I wasn't on him for the Masters, and I didn't think he would necessarily go extremely well there. He went worse than I thought. It's tough being the defending champion, and I think more so at Augusta than maybe any other major because of the traditions, the champions dinner. The spotlight was extra hot on him because he had just made the switch to live. So I think that was a pretty tough circumstance for him. And now we come here to Valhalla. The PGA has been the worst major of the 4 for Jon Rahm. Also, he has finished top 10 in every single live event this season. He's 7 for 7 in top 10s. But when you're in a field of 54, shouldn't one of those have been a win or 2? And he's come out in public and said, I don't know if I'm quite adjusted to the rock and roll and the wearing shorts and the whole different vibe around this joint. I think he's also alluded to the fact that he kind of prefers the environment of golf on the PGA Tour. He's asking for that unification. So, I don't know if I'm to the point where Rahm has those blinkers on and is completely 100% focused on this task again. And that's really the only reason why I'm not on him. He's, of course, got the game, and I'm not going to argue that he doesn't have the current form. Top 10 in every event, no matter what it is awful good. But he didn't make the card, and I know nobody's talking about him, but I didn't go down that road this week.
As you said, we can't play them all. 156 golfers, 20 club champs. It's a Michael Block party. We get that. And I've taken, 25 minutes. You know this. I could talk hours and hours with you, and I know you're swamped. So without further ado, let me give you center stage, the Valhalla, the second major, and your outrights.
Well, we've talked pretty at length about Brooks Koepka and, why I like him this week. I'm also I mentioned I had 2 shorter shots at 14-1. I'm also on Xander Schauffele. And we talked about him a little bit backstage before we came on, kind of the opposite theory here, or the opposite thinking of Brooks Koepka, where, everybody and their mother's on him. I think Xander is kind of the opposite direction, where everybody's given up on this guy. And I explained, he didn't necessarily lose those tournaments. He was beaten by red hot golfers at the Players Championship and the Wells Fargo. And again, this is another guy like Jon Rahm that is, in my book, certainly a top 5 player in the world, and maybe even better than that. And if you're going to give me a top 5 player in the world who almost without a doubt is going to be there on Sunday again with a chance, probably at least in the top 10, if not higher than that on the leaderboard, and you're going to give me 14-1, I think that's extremely fair. And I'll buy. Sold. Thank you very much. He's got everything in the tank. He can bomb it. He can putt. He's the best player in this field the last 24 rounds on approach shots of 200 yards or better. And you're going to see a lot of those this week. It's a long beast of a golf course, is Valhalla. Xander Schauffele, we know the history in the majors is tremendous. He's a top 10 machine. I mentioned I bet one of the other guys we're discussing now, and I can't recall now, was it Koepka or one of the guys for a top 20 finish? Koepka and Xander, I actually bet for top 10 finishes. All my other guys, I bet for top 20, a little better price-wise there. It was, fairly significant minus money for a top 20 on those two guys. So I went ahead and played them top 10. And then went down a little bit deeper on the board to Bryson DeChambeau. That's who I was talking about. Played him for a top 20. Also played him for an outright at 31-1. And we've pretty much covered everything on him. He is certainly a bomber and a good putter, like Xander and like Brooks. And then at 32-1, which was a price I found last week, and now it's kind of come back up a little. I've seen it get back into the low 30s. 26, I think, was about the low mark I saw, but that's Colin Morikawa. He's another one of those guys that was top 8 at Augusta National. The putting has all of a sudden been remarkable for Morikawa, which was never a strength of his game, even when he was winning major championships not long ago. But the last 3 stroke play starts, he has gained tremendously on the field with the putter. His putter was excellent at Augusta. We know what kind of iron player he is. He is not a bomber, but he did literally measure just a tick under 300 yards on average at the Wells Fargo. It's like 299.4 yards on average off the tee. That's not exactly chopped liver as far as distance, but what makes him elite is his accuracy. He's number 2 on the PGA Tour in driving accuracy. And when you have a golf course like last year, Oak Hill, where it was long, you had brutal rough, and the fairways were narrow. Okay, who did we see in the final pairing? Brooks Koepka and Viktor Hovland, a couple of big hitters. We did not see many short hitters at the top of the leaderboard, because when the fairways are narrow, no matter how accurate they are, they're going to miss them too. And then they're dealing with that rough, and it's more difficult for them out of that rough from further back on the hole than it is for these bombers who might be in the rough as well. Here at Valhalla, we have wide fairways. So this is where the accurate hitters have a little bit of an edge, like Colin Morikawa. The bombers, they might find some rough. They might be up there 350 yards in the rough, but Morikawa might be out there 300 yards from the fairway. So that's kind of a level playing field there in my mind. When you have that narrow fairway with huge rough and a long golf course, it really inhibits the shorter hitters. But Morikawa, again, with his elite accuracy, I think he's going to be okay in that regard. The putting has been much better. The major championship record is off the hook. He's been top 10 at the Masters 3 times. He's won the British Open. He's won the PGA. He's finished top 10 in a US Open. So, Morikawa showed me at the Masters, he kind of came out of nowhere. He wasn't in great form. And I went, wow, this guy takes these majors pretty seriously. And I think he is one to be taken seriously in betting for major championships. And then I went a little bit deeper with Will Zalatoris, found him at 57-1. And I was like, are you kidding me? And then I woke up on Monday and he was all the way out to 80 or 90-1. I said, what happened? Did he injure himself again? And I think it was a little bit related to the fact that he kind of fell apart over the weekend at the Wells Fargo. The first 2 rounds, he was in contention to win that tournament. And that is very much a similar golf course to what we have here this week. He's done extremely well at Torrey Pines, Bay Hill. His record in majors is incredible. The last 3 years in major championships, he is second only to Scottie Scheffler in strokes gained total at majors. Willie Z lost in a playoff in the PGA in 2022, runner-up at the U.S. Open to Matt Fitzpatrick, 3 top 10s and 3 tries at the Masters. It's very similar to a Morikawa scorecard. He's been right there with everything but winning in his young career in major championships. And then back to the price, over the weekend, he kind of drifted at the Wells Fargo and shot an 80 on Sunday. But now we're starting to see some buyback. I mean, 80, 90 to 1 on Willie Z with his track record in major championships and his ability, I think, was out of hand. And he's similar to Morikawa in the sense that he's not a bomber, still gets it out there pretty darn good at about 296 average on the PGA Tour, but also very, very accurate off the tee, one of the best in total driving on the PGA Tour, as is Morikawa. Morikawa, I want to say I had it in front of me here. Here it is. Morikawa, 49th on the PGA Tour in total driving. Zalatoris, 28th. Xander Schauffele, 6th. And then my final selection is Sepp Straka, who is 51st on tour in total driving. Again, not a bomber off the tee, but incredibly accurate, ranking 3rd on the PGA Tour for driving accuracy. And this guy is really coming into his own as far as a major contender in these big events. And it seems like he is just learning on the job and getting progressively better. We start with the Masters, where he finished 16th. It was last year's PGA at a beast of a golf course in Oak Hill, where he's not supposed to do well, and he finished 7th. He was runner-up at Royal Liverpool for the British Open last summer. He has also won on a Jack Nicklaus course before, 2 years ago at the Honda Classic at PGA National. And he is also a member of the victorious Ryder Cup team this last fall, and won a point with fellow teammate Shane Lowry over there as a part of that European victory. And I think the Ryder Cup is another building block towards winning major championships, as are tournaments like the Wells Fargo and getting a win at the Honda, which has produced a lot of major winners, and finishing runner-up at the British. All that builds that major championship resume. And the Ryder Cup is another example of being able to perform on a big stage. And like I say, Sepp Straka seems to be growing exponentially in that category right before our eyes. So that's the card. Brooks and Schauffele at 14 to 1, also for a top 10 finish. And then you've got DeChambeau, Morikawa, Zalatoris, and Sepp Straka, all for a top 20. And I forgot another LIV golfer, Joaquin Niemann, at 40 to 1. This guy is a bomber, incredibly long off the tee, wonderful long iron player, magic short game, one of the best putters in the field. And his best putting seems to come on bent grass, where he has twice finished top 6 at Muirfield Village, another Jack Nicklaus design. And he has won at big boy courses. He won at Riviera, the Genesis Invitational. He's done well at Torrey Pines. On the LIV circuit, he's been red hot. He comes off of a 7th place finish in his last start. And in 7 events this year, he's won twice and finished top 10 an additional 4 times. So, it's not that hard to figure out why Joaquin Niemann makes a lot of sense here. And that rounds out the card. So Brooks, Schauffele, DeChambeau, Morikawa, Niemann, Zalatoris, and Straka. A 7-pack for you, Mr. Dawson.
And it's funny. One of our spreadsheets, our simulators, usually long iron play when it's a big factor. There's a third one that I have with the Morikawa, Niemann, and that's Victor Hovland, who we know what happened at the Masters. I don't have him ranked well this week as well, but I love the Niemann Morikawa. I love the whole card there. I love the prices. Again, as you said a few minutes ago, you went up top. You're not on the short guys with the Scotties and the Rorys. Schauffele and Koepka both at 14 to 1. And then you get the DeChambeau, Morikawa, Niemann's 30, 31, 32, 40. throw in Willie Z, as you said, as high as 50, 60, 70 to 1, and then you end with Straka. So, as I like to say, you sprinkled the fairway pretty damn well there, Mr. Kannon.
Yeah. And, I believe wholeheartedly that each and every one of these guys has a legitimate chance. And, a lot of guys will approach it differently, where they might bet 3 or 4 guys outright, and then they might bet 3 or 4 different guys, maybe have one that crosses over, but bet some different names for top 20 and some different names. These are the 7 guys that make the most sense to me. So I'm also going to bet them to finish top 20 and or top 10, depending on the price. I figure if I think they're good enough to win, why not kind of hedge the bet a little bit, so to speak, and also take them for a finishing position?
And we go to your head-to-head matchups.
Yeah, just 3 head-to-head matchups this week, and they're all guys. I shouldn't say they're all guys. 2 of the 3 are guys that I bet outright. The first one I did not bet outright, but I think he's a sneaky good player this week. A guy asked me just recently before we came on, who are the value plays this week? And, guys like Corey Connors and Denny McCarthy and Taylor Moore and maybe Tyrrell Hatton and Keegan Bradley and Sepp Straka, who I'm on, kind of that B tier player who you figure at least a couple of them are probably going to show up on the leaderboard. Although I do eventually feel that the winner is going to go what my good friend Matt Humans called a Louisville slugger. I think we are going to see a Louisville slugger this week in Louisville, Kentucky, end up with the Wanamaker Trophy. But, Denny McCarthy is a guy that I think should have a good week. He played well a few weeks ago against Akshay Bhatia. He did well last week at the Wells Fargo, and I took him in a head-to-head matchup over Patrick Reed at -120. I've seen that price creep up a little bit. I think as high as -130 is still okay. But Patrick Reed, as much as I like McCarthy as a solid player who doesn't make a ton of mistakes and has a great short game, I think Patrick Reed is not a great fit for this golf course. He too has a tremendous short game, but he can be very errant with the driver, and he's not long off the tee. I talked about Morikawa and Sepp Straka, not being incredibly long, but they are incredibly accurate. Patrick Reed is not incredibly accurate. And if he's short and in the rough, which by the way is going to be wet with all the rain that they've had, that's a difficult proposition. So I'll take McCarthy over Reed, and kind of the same thinking with Joaquin Niemann at -150 over Cam Smith. It's a big price, but I believe a big advantage for the way the golf course fits Niemann. We've talked about that. Cam Smith, a tremendous player, maybe the best short game in the world, but again, errant off the tee and not incredibly long. And that can be a really difficult situation to scramble out of at this golf course, at a major championship over the course of 4 days. It's why Cam Smith and Patrick Reed do well at the Masters, because you can afford to be errant off the tee there with no rough to speak of. This week, if you're short and errant off the tee, it's going to be a penalty. And then finally, I went with Zalatoris at -120 over Dustin Johnson. Johnson fits the profile. He's a bomber. He's got a good short game, all of that. But I wonder if the best years are behind him. We haven't seen the fire out of DJ in quite some time. He was kind of a hot pick last year, out of the weeds. Watch out for DJ at the PGA last year. And he flashed for a minute, but eventually did nothing. And maybe we'll see that again. I think he missed the cut at the Masters, and he's talked about trying to refocus, but I don't know. And I'm not going to say that I'm ready to think that it shows up here. So I'll take Zalatoris at a relatively short price over DJ head to head as well.
Well, I can't obviously thank you enough. It's a major. I know we have you a couple minutes extra in overtime. The spreadsheet, the crawler's been going the whole time, Brady. Everyone knows here. If they don't, shame on them. You can head over to Twitter. Follow Brady at Las Vegas Golfer. Does a lot of work with Golf Bet, PGA Tour. Can find you obviously on Sports Grid tonight and 4, 5, 6 times probably this week because of the major. But I always end with you so you can tell everyone exactly where to find your written work and, of course, your TV work.
Yeah, my article for the PGA Tour, if you go to pgatour.com under golf bet, it should be up there right now. And a pretty insightful article there where I spoke with Matt Humans and a couple of other really good golf bettors, and also some bookmakers and where they're seeing action and the sharp play and the recreational play. So that can be a really good read if you haven't quite finished off your card yet, and you can try and glean some information there about the markets and who's betting what, and kind of, assemble your own decisions from there. Golf.com, my article was up earlier in the week going over a lot of the same topics we talked about here. Maybe I missed a nugget or two that you can find there in that article. And then, of course, yeah, like you said, I'll be on Sports Grid here in about the next hour and a half, and another time this evening at 10 p.m. Eastern, and probably throughout the tournament with some in-game advice as well. We talked about it earlier, Jeff, and I'll say it again. I have yet to hit a pre-tournament outright this season. I've had a lot of second places. I've had a lot of near misses, but yet to cash that pre-tournament ticket yet. However, I want to say it's 7, maybe 8 that I've cashed in-game now. So the in-game game has been good, and I'm always there on Saturday morning and Sunday morning on Sports Grid to give you some thoughts on what I might be playing in-game, really week to week, not only the majors. So, and then like you say, Jeff, you can find out and get updates on all that type of thing, the written and the on-air work, on Twitter at Las Vegas Golfer. Next week, where are we? Gosh. You caught me off guard there. Where are we next week? Boy, I need a producer in my ear telling me. Where's Noah, man? Gosh, that's okay. I cannot recall, to be honest with you. It's like not the Nelson. The Travelers is always after the U.S. Open. The Canadian Open, I think, is, after the Travelers. I really can't recall. I apologize. Well, no. Listen, hey. Oh, maybe it's Colonial. We going back to Texas? I'd have to punch it up and look for you, my friend. I'm sorry. That's quite all right. Hey, obviously, I've been pretty focused on this event. We'll see if that's a good thing or a bad thing in about 4 days. Well, I said every time I looked, you're somewhere else this week, and we're blessed and honored always to have you here Wednesdays, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. I want a special thanks again to Noah. Great work back here. And to everyone watching and listening, let's win some tickets. Brady, the streak starts this week. We're gonna get a major. You're gonna start the streak, and next week we're gonna talk about how you won. Okay? Let's do it. Fair enough, my friend. Thanks again for always having me, Jeff. Always love being able to just air it out and ramble on for as long as I want to about all this stuff. You and I, the feeling's mutual that we could go on for hours here. From myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Investor, the one and only Brady Kannon at Las Vegas Golfer, and the producer of the show, Mr. Noah Frank. Everyone, have a great night, and we'll see you at the winner's circle.